Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? I have a mic. I can barely tell because I'm naturally a pretty loud person, so it sounds just like me right now. But thank you for being here today and taking the time. I see a lot of people who are students here. Anybody a student currently, or student of life? Always a student? Yes, hi. Well, I'm really happy to be back here. It feels like so long ago. We've had pandemics, we've had a lot of wars, we have a lot of things going on. And so 2018, 2019, it's so long ago, but yet feels very recent. Like I'm walking around and I've seen some familiar faces, and everything is looking really great. They have a really wonderful exhibition, so at the end of the lecture, you might be able to see it. I don't know what time the museum closes. Today I want to sort of just share a little bit about perhaps what I've been up to, and for those of you who didn't see the shows that we had back then, there will be a few pieces that I show that I will mention that they were on view here. I want to start also to thank Scott and the team and everybody who helped today with the workshop, so the education team. It's just, Schneider Museum of Art was one of my first comprehensive artist in residence programs, and it was also a teaching fellowship. So I got to really learn a lot, and that helped with my foundation now for what I do at Yale University. And just in general, I think it's a very special place here. I want to start with thinking a little bit about drawing. How many of you draw? Maybe in science class or anywhere? Yeah, so drawing for me is a beautiful thing to do because it's easy, you can draw anywhere. And really often your ideas for your larger work will be in your sketchbook to begin with. It is like the beginning, whether that sketchbook is digital, any digital artist here, or on paper, or whatever way sketching comes to you. My sketchbook has always been my main source. And so here you're seeing a few works on paper down from just 9 inches, but about 12, and going up to like 22 by 30 inches on paper. I started as a person that would draw a lot in all of my classes, and back then I didn't draw that many people. I mostly drew flowers and plants. But I find it that sketching and thinking about how to convey an idea through visual language was what led me to who I am today. And so some of my sketches can be more surreal, like one of the ones that you see here, or the previous one, or in combination, a bit more political. So I do like to think about how visual art is a place of refuge. Beautiful, something that transports us to something else, but it is also a vehicle for communicating information and thinking about who we are today as a society and maybe what we want to celebrate or change. So you see one of the drawings on the right is called Home, and it's a form that looks like the continent, and that drawing was inspired by the migrant and their children separations that we were experiencing and that still happen today. And the one on the left, I like to do somewhat allegorical, surreal images that are very like gentle and soft, but I also like to embed political content into them or just messaging. This was actually here at Schneider Museum of Art, and Scott came to visit me in New York. We know each other from Pratt Institute because Scott used to work at Pratt when I was an undergrad. And so as you're sitting here, many of you are artists, you might consider that the people next to you maybe become people you know for a very long time and might extending for opportunities to you. So Scott visited me and invited me to come here. And this installation was put in one of the back rooms of the museum. I don't know, maybe you know, and it's like a very beautiful room. It's a kind of square, and we had, I don't know how many, but definitely hundreds and hundreds of drawings covering all of the walls, and mixed media sculptures. And it's one of my favorite installations to date. So thank you to the team who did that, and Dewey, one of the students who put every single drawing up on the wall. Like, it took a long time, so you know, everybody supports the artist sometimes, especially in the museum context. And the themes of the drawings here were just from my sketchbook. So it's just an ongoing pile of prints, works on paper, that I just continue to evolve for a long time. So some are very satirical or political, some are just like random thoughts or doodles. So I do like the range of imagery and of subject matter. I think that life is very textured. We go through all kinds of experiences, and for me, art sort of reflects life. So I like it isn't just one subject matter, but it is a series of things, a series of images. That inspired my following show in 2019, which was a solo exhibition with the Museum of Sonoma County. I grew up in Santa Rosa before my family moved to the States from Mexico, and that is sort of where I lived until I went to college. So it was a very big deal to return home and have a proper exhibition at the local museum. And part of my exhibitions is that I like to curate group shows. Actually, Scott was in the group show, Ryan, who's trying to take a photo over there as well. And I just find it that art is it's very community driven, and it's always fun to bring your friends onto opportunities, whether it is a workshop or an exhibit. Some of the drawings actually from the exhibit that I did here made it on, and some of the prints that I created while at SOU. There are a few on there because we have a very beautiful print shop here, and I spent like almost 3 months in there making work. The show that came after was sort of a result of both my time here in Ashland and other works on paper. You're in school right now, so when you're in school, there's a lot that happens, and when something is really intense, right? Whether it's an artist in residence or a undergrad program or graduate program. And when I finished school, I was having a bit of a hard time thinking about how to push my paintings forward, and you'll see some of my works later. And I started to make this collage mixed media drawings and paintings, and to start to wear them. And that really freed me from the two-dimensional space. I was able to work three-dimensionally, think about my relationship to the content. Garments are a way to talk about identity, and they have been quite political. I mean, there used to be dress codes about people used to have to wear a certain item to work, what you couldn't wear, and as you think about the Constitution, even like the fact that we have American flags on a lot of our clothing, if you really went down to the law, that could also be considered against the law. So clothing is a form of expression, but it is also something that can carry a lot of meaning. So for me, my sculptures are more in the fine arts realm. They're sculptures, but I like to discuss identity and just like cool things that I want to put onto the sculptures. So you can see one on, you can see both, right? So the one on the Virgen de Guadalupe is a sort of a figure from my Mexican heritage, and different kinds of patches, but I have for sure recycle full American flags onto the garments, and consider them very collage-like, just like the installation. The photo credit goes to Ryan Bonilla, who's here in the room, who took these beautiful photographs as a collaboration. He doesn't like me to mention him during my talks, but there we go. Also photo credit. I mean, the whole thing is photo credit to Ryan. So since the beginning, they used to be made out of paper. So if you look at my New York Mag article, I'm wearing like rice paper, Tyvek. Literally, some of them are made just from like upholstery materials or cloth, but a lot of them were from paper. Recently, there's a lot of canvas, textiles that are recycled. And this piece here actually took me the most time because I took one whole reconstructed flag and embroidered it back onto other surfaces. So maybe it takes as much as painting, but it certainly hurts a little bit more when you're stitching for many hours. And this one's called Opportunity for All, and it was featured in New York in a group exhibition. Some of the hand style there, which I really like, and the stripes are actually cloth from the flag. This one specifically had a little bit more of a broad subject matter because it was a portrait of Gina Ortiz, who was running for an election in Texas. So this one's not specifically just migration, immigration subject matter, but it was a bit of a portrait of her as this queer woman who was running for election in Texas. Recently, they have gotten really large, so I started to, over many months, sometimes years, just sort of extend the garments. So you see the one here, that's at Crystal Bridges Museum of Art, and it has been purchased for their collection now. It's called Citizen Dress, and it has a lot of painted subject matter, objects, embroidery, And I think some smaller miniature paintings on the skirt. And it is one of my favorite pieces to date because of its scale. And with the exhibition, I got to draw on the wall. Earlier, we were talking about how when we were little, it was hard to just go and draw on our walls, and our parents probably were like, don't draw on the wall. I'm really excited that I get to do that now for a living. And actually, the first time that Scott, when I did my show here, he was like, why don't you just draw on the wall? And I was like, are you sure that's okay? So I like doing that. It's almost 20 foot up to draw that one. And the funny thing is that I did a time-lapse video, but the camera kind of tilted down while I was drawing, and I didn't notice it. So in the video, it's just the bottom half. So you just see my feet. But you know, it lives in the photograph. And those are temporary. They're deinstalled later. And actually, the pieces of metal are from it was an interactive kind of display. So you could go answer, what does the citizenship mean to you? What does it mean to be part of the country? Or what are the challenges? And so people got to write notes and doodle. And actually, a little child added to it. I found a drawing later from somebody who collaborated directly on the wall. But you can see that on the right photo and the left that I was wearing it, and it used to be very short. And then it kind of got extended from there. So this is the drawing that I did here at Schneider, and it used to take over the front of the lobby. As you come in, you see the desk. That whole wall was covered. And it took me like 5 days to draw it, and people were like coming by as I evolved it. I am a very kind of automatic type of drawer. I just sort of start and then move forward from there and kind of keep going as I think of things. The main thing for this piece, which was quite large, was just to think about the balance between the black and the white. So I wanted to keep a lot of the white of the wall present. And that led me to a lot of works, actually, and I will go over them in a minute. But just so you know, this piece was here featured, and in the series of pieces coming up, and that was the first time they were in a museum. And this is 5 by 7 feet, and it used to be in the main exhibition of the museum. And these pieces are like the first pieces that I thought, this is what I'm really into. Like, here I am 5 years or 6 years after graduating from grad school. Like, I like this. And I think that's like the main thing. It isn't about somebody else saying that something is great. It's truly about you liking what you make. And we were talking earlier today, you know, putting something on a shirt, and it's like, if you like it, then you're gonna wear it, and you're gonna be into it. So these are acrylic on canvas, and they are kind of an all over I Spy type of painting. So there are a lot of smaller details, and it evolves over time. Some of my major influences are probably like Jackson Pollock, Marc Chagall. So I do like to have a lot of drawing embedded into my work, and in this kind of all over feeling. Here are a few more. Pretty large, 4 by 4 feet, like 5 by 7. And I still own the one on this side, which is very inspired by my trip to Italy. So in 2016, I went with Pratt in Venice to teach a class, a drawing class. And I was just really mesmerized by all of the cathedrals and the churches and the Giotto chapel. And I just loved all of the imagery. So this is my own take on Madonna and Child, inspired by some of like the Mexican imagery, Dia de los Muertos, and it has some political symbolism in there as well. And they look very small, but they're large, and they're very textured. So there's a lot of drawing, some stenciling, and some reflective paint. So they tend to be very, very fun to look and to experience over time. And here are a few more from that series. Actually, these were earlier, and the other ones are later, with the exception of the one that looks like a figure in the middle. But really, I work with acrylics, and I have worked acrylics for quite a bit of time. So I like to do very like large watercolor-like application, and then really spend some time with my brush to like draw in all of the details. I would say that the color palette, like, it depends from painting to painting what I'm really into in that moment and how things play out. I think there's always a plan with art, and then there's what happens, because it's like very much in the present, right? And so I tend to just go with the flow, and sometimes that's actually easier to do that, to just be in the moment. Now these are considered like interior paintings, maybe the size of those panels or a little smaller. And recently, for a long time, I really wanted to do murals, like public art, and you see a lot of it in every city. And I was really inspired by, again, my trip to Italy and a lot of the muralists from Mexico. And so in like 2022, 23, and so on until now, I got my wish. I got to do large-scale pieces, installed interior and exterior. And these are my 2 exterior murals in Glen Ellen, California. So I'm borrowing the same type of idea like I do in my personal paintings, but in this case, they have to be a little bit less textured, and they have to be quite large, so 12 by 12, and then this is like 5 or 7 by 12 actually. And they live outside, so they're varnished, and I got to do a lot of research for these pieces, which was a little different from me. We don't often think about research in our work, but we actually research all the time because everything is an inspiration, so it is just natural. But for this project, I actually had to do some community workshops and talk to people and look at some archives and talk to the Historical Society of Glen Ellen. They had a lot to tell me, and just like really think about the place and how has this place evolved over time and who has contributed to taking care of the land or to anything that has to do with the region. So you can see that my kind of more with the rainbow above and this kind of natural person that feels almost like a nature. I was really into nature. In California, we had those fires and there was a lot of loss, so we were thinking a lot about what does it mean to inhabit this land and to take care of it, and that we're actually quite vulnerable to the environment, if we don't take care of it. So there's a phoenix, and there's just a lot of different kinds of images that you can experience in person. And then the other one looks really abstract, and it has a kind of rose in the center, but there's a dance circle with figures floating through it, almost like that Matisse painting. So, but you have to experience in real life. Or was this a sun? I get those two mixed up nowadays. But really thinking about what does public art look like today? Like I'm Thomas Hart Benton and certain people really inspire my work. But now today we have abstraction, we have digital media and everything we see online. So I guess I'm thinking about what does it mean to me? What does a mural mean to me? And how do I convey information? And also get away with just doing a giant brush mark that doesn't really mean anything besides me having a great time with expression. And so the murals have gotten bigger, which allows me to fill them up even more and do larger marks. So this is a 10 by 20 foot exterior mural that I completed last summer at the Luther Burbank Center for the Arts. For this piece, I was really, excited about, I'm gonna go back, thinking about the environment, all of the flowers. I noticed there are a lot of flowers right now here. Every tree is like in bloom. So really thinking about flowers, what they mean to me, gardens, because the Luther Burbank Center for the Arts was funded as a kind of note of Luther Burbank, the botanist who used to live in Northern California. And so a lot of the plants in the region actually were impacted by him and his ideas. So you also see that kind of in the all over pattern, and I also wanted to celebrate like things like mariachi, guelaguetza, jazz, because it's a performing arts center. So as you walk up to the piece, you'll see a lot of types of imagery in them. But from far, it kind of feels much more loose and abstract. For this piece, which was a little different than usual, because usually I do research, I sketch, and then I paint the pieces. I was given the opportunity to work with community members, like as many as here. I think we had over 120. And we just got to sit and draw together and think about what does it mean to be from the community, and everybody had different things they wanted to feature on the mural. So you can see that in the photos here that are from the workshop, and then imagery from those workshops ended up onto the murals themselves. So this was my first full-on collaborative mural, and I mean, there was all kinds of things that made it onto the mural, right? And I think that was beautiful. I worked with teens from this place called Chops Teens, and they had their ideas about what was going on there. And in a way, I feel like that helped, because we're all filtered through who we are and our ideas content. And in this case, they got to contribute directly without me filtering through and just putting what I thought would be in the mural, but people actually being part of adding themselves. So it wasn't just what I thought. And then we move on to this one. So the blue piece here is now currently at Santa Rosa Junior College within the Santa Rosa Junior College Foundation. And it's about 8 feet by 17 feet. And this mural was really inspired by water, the oak tree, which is, we have a lot of oak trees on campus. And I went to school there for many years. It's a very beautiful place, just like this one. And so it has a lot of symbols and imagery about education. And different groups on campus contributed content to them, to the piece. And it has the symbol for peace as well, which I think feels very appropriate right now. I sometimes, most of the time, get to do what I want with my murals, but in certain situations, there are a lot of guidelines for what goes on a piece, and especially in the medical situation, because this piece is for Sutter Hospital in Northern California, and people all ages in all types of situations walk through the hospital, and I put work on the first floor, so this big mural, and then 2 levels of art, works on paper, so all 3 levels of this new wing have my work and the work of other artists. There were, I think, almost 100 artists through the wing that got to display their work. Here, I had a good time painting the kind of mountains of Northern California or Sonoma County. There are a lot of vineyards, and Santa Rosa is like known for the roses, so I put some of the roses in this mural, and I got away with some hummingbirds. There were some rules because in that space people are quite fragile, so you want to make a mural that wouldn't trigger anything in them, that they just sort of enjoy. So this one has a bit more color areas and a lot of tiny brushwork. So I'm really enjoying working with images at a big scale, but getting in there and really giving you mark making that feels like a shimmers or feels really tactile. And so I spend a lot of months working on the pieces, and when you go to see them, you'll see a lot of detail. So this is, I did the mural you saw before where I was working with people in the community. That was one of the walls. The project here for LBC had 2 walls. So this is one of the main pieces, and it's 20 by 20 feet. And this piece was fully thought of by me, so no collaboration necessarily. But I got to really go big and keep a kind of extensive brush work. So it feels very loose. It feels like, you know, an expressionist type of painting, and then the palette feels somewhat impressionist, and I was able to put in a lot of drawings about music, the performing arts. I even put in a rooster, which is in there somewhere, and people are like, why is there a rooster? And I'm like, for fun. So there's quite a bit, and it's quite impressive to drive up to it because it's on the outside of the building. And so this is like one of the pieces that I'm very, very excited about. Also the one where I collaborated with people, and I'm really thinking about what it means for me in terms of will I continue to paint directly the murals? Am I thinking about stained glass or, you know, fresco? You know, what is the next level? And then what does it look like when I go 60 feet up? There's a beautiful David Bowie mural in Jersey City that is, I don't know, 10 floors. It's fantastic. All over 100 feet. So it gets, I mean, at that scale, it becomes quite monumental. These are considered small scale murals still. And then if you've been to the University of Oregon in Eugene, I just completed this piece for their new dormitory. And it's in the main lobby, it's student housing, and it's more of a abstract landscape inspired by different images of that area of Oregon. And I had a really great time. As you see, we do have a door in the middle, but that's totally okay. I think it's a great project, and if you go up to the university, you get to see it. In the spirit of trying new things, I know you have a wonderful ceramics studio here on campus. You should go there if you haven't. I got to try ceramics at Anderson Ranch. in Snowmass, Oregon, and had a fantastic time with it. Sorry, Colorado. My husband is over here, fact check me. So in Colorado, one of our favorite places now. And I'd never done it before. One of the things with working with ceramics and doing a glaze is that you think the color will be a certain way, and when it's fully done, it looks so much better. Like, it's fantastic. Here's my studio. Anderson Ranch is a famous place for ceramics. A lot of incredible artists come through there, and it was an artist colony of some sort that now is a nonprofit. A part of the residency there was to do a workshop with high school students, and there were newcomers, so there were students who just immigrated to the United States. And we talked about identity, about symbols of their home that they left behind, and what does home mean to them in Carbondale. And here we are. The clothing was wet still. Some of us were wearing today some clothes from the workshop, and that was pretty wet, so we just held them up. Our studio that I share with Ryan is in Jersey City at Mana Contemporary, and I'm currently working on a new series of paintings, and you can see the size right there. I start very abstract, and I embellish them over time. They take a little bit to complete because I'm not always sure where I'm going with them. And part of my job as an artist and like the way I live my life is that I'm also a teacher. I am, like Scott said, I'm the assistant director of a graduate program at the Yale School of Art, and I also teach both graduate level and undergrad. And here are some of my introduction to painting students, doing a little bit of a crit of their work, a few of their projects. And so I really like working with students of all ages. There's nothing better than having somebody who's never like touched the brush or never mixed the color, try it for the first time and discover that they're actually pretty good at it. And here we are in Colorado. So because Ryan and I had a good time when we were at my residency, I'm learning to ski. He's very good at snowboarding. So part of the fun when we travel is that we get to do new things. You know, snowboard, ski, you have a great skate park here. And then that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Maria. We have time for questions. We have a microphone on this side, a microphone on that side. If you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll pass you the microphone so that the cameras can pick up the audio. Any questions?
And we have a lot of time for questions because I only went to about 30 minutes.
Okay. Cameron.
I really loved how you did your install where you just completely covered the walls in drawings, and I'm just curious, how do you sort of find your place as an artist in the fine art world when you're doing these very untraditional install styles?
I think that's a really great question. There's always the more traditional, which is to make a painting, put it on the wall, but I think a lot of institutions, including museums, are looking for things that bring together the different disciplines, whether it's digital, drawing, painting, into a single setting. So there's room for everybody, I would say.
Thank you. Questions? Got two in the front.
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
I was wondering if you did a sketch or a painting prior to working on the wall or those murals, or do you just go to the mural and start working?
That's a really good question. So I wish I could just go up and just start working, which I do, like in the project we did here at Schneider, directly on the wall. But generally for the more permanent murals, I do have to present like 4 to 5 compositions. People pick one, the committee says yes, and then I try to be as close as possible to what I presented. I think that there's always about a 10 to 15% variation, and that's just to make it fun. But it will look somewhat like what they thought they were purchasing. And I think that's part of them feeling safe, and also that they are thinking about something that would be around for a while and be enjoyed by different people. So that has taught me to work in a different way, where it's not just like what I'm feeling in the moment, but that I do prepare something that gets approved and then painted. Yeah.
Thank you, Rita. One end.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing. when did you know, like, you could make a life out of being an artist? And you said you drew all the time and were always dabbling and drawing. So, like, when was the aha moment, like, I'm going to make this my life?
That's a great question. I think most of us don't feel like perhaps we will be able to make a living when we start. We do it for fun. There's a certain level of faith and trust in that something will work out if you do something that you enjoy. And I think that is very important. I've had friends who've selected a career in economics or something when they wanted to study like architecture or they wanted to be artists. And it does take a little bit of a bravery to do it. But nowadays there's so many ways to make money in the arts. Everything we wear, everything we make is created by an artist and designer. So there are ways in which you can do painting that goes on the wall in a museum or that's sold in that way, and you can also do other kinds of creative projects. There's a need. It's a big industry. I think for me, I didn't really think I could do it. I did go to school for it, but maybe after graduation from grad school. But it's been actually maybe in the last 5 or 6 years where my career has really taken off and is providing for me full on. But I also do maintain a teaching career. I think it's important to have, art is like very trendy, so what if 1 year you don't sell anything? It can really impact you, so it's good to have also a dual career situation, like teaching or working in a company, so that you can be okay when things are low. Yeah.
Thank you. 2 questions here.
Thank you for today. As an what do you find to be your biggest challenge as an artist?
Well, that's deep. I used to be very shy, so I think it's hard to be up in front in a stage and put yourself out there. I think that's probably the biggest challenge. Working with both undergrad and graduate students, I see that it takes, you have to perform or you have to be very confident to be able to be like, this is what I'm making, this is who I am, like come enjoy it, come support. So you do have to step outside of that. And then the other things a lot of artists sometimes don't feel like they can do like social media and marketing. And one thing I've learned is that it's very important to let people know that you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Maria. When you do a huge mural, do you ever use projection, like a camera obscura, to get it perspective?
Yeah, so that's a really good note, a good question from you. I don't always like, when you trace something, there's a feeling that it was traced, and I can see it. So I prefer to just stand in front of that, know more or less where things are going to go, and then just do it. Because I think that there's a freshness to the mark. But there are a lot of artists who do project, especially when designs are very like realistic or figurative or very detailed. It is helpful to transfer or project. Yep.
Thank you. Time for more questions. Yes, okay. Coming to you.
I do have a technical question. Do you use acrylics on your large pieces, or what kind of paint do you use?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. So I use watercolor, gouache on the smaller scale, and then acrylic for my big paintings, and also acrylic for the murals. So everything is acrylic or water-based.
And it stays?
Yes. Like acrylic dry is like a plastic, so it dries permanent. Gouache, you could maybe work it a little bit, and watercolor is definitely not permanent. But for the murals, they get varnished so that they don't, in case it rains or things like that, so they're protected from the sun as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Don't forget, one person's question can be another person's treat, so don't hesitate. No such thing as a silly question. Okay, you got a microphone right behind you.
Thanks.
Sorry, wait, there's one person with the microphone behind you, then we'll bring it to you. Go ahead, David.
Okay, thanks. I just curious about the transition for you from going to works that were not outside to works that are outside in that sort of public space, or works in public buildings and things like that. And you had shown a lot of works that are overtly political and engage with a lot of themes sort of related to contemporary events and things like that. I'm curious how that, how you balance that, or how you work with that, because some of those themes obviously might be appropriate for certain spaces but not others, and just curious how you, still have have your voice appear in those venues.
No, that's a really good question. Thank you. I think it depends on the context. Like the hospital, that tends to be a bit more calm and maybe more of a landscape imagery, just because of the nature of the space. For the exterior murals, like the Glen Ellen murals, I actually got to put some politics in there because it was about the land and harvest and workers' rights. And so there's a history of murals that are both non-political and political, and I am somewhere in between, sort of deciding, depending on the situation, what I make. The ones for the Luther Burbank Center for the Arts were about the arts, performing arts, so they're musically inspired. And there are politics because the people that came to my workshops actually had a lot to say about abortion, about the fires, about politics, the land. So that one actually has a lot of politics in it, but you have to go close to it to really see it, because it functions on two viewing points. The farther away, the more abstract, and as you get close to it, you can actually see a lot of the messaging. But I do work with architects, committees that look at my work and approve it, and so you do have to negotiate with them. They're generally anti-censorship, so I don't think that they would say, hey, don't put that, but there are some conditions of public art, which is it can't have violence, it cannot have hate speech, right? Certain things cannot be or shouldn't. I mean, in my opinion, my own opinion, I really do think about that this mural is for everybody, including children, so I think about what I put on them. Yeah.
Thank you. Question right here for you, microphone.
I'm thinking of Diego Rivera, and murals are up for a few years and then they're destroyed. Have any of your murals been destroyed, and how does that affect you? Okay,
I have some murals that are destroyed and I get very excited about it. When they're temporary, so the commissioning entity like a museum or center, those purchase temporary murals from me from 4 months to a year, and those are supposed to have a short life. And actually the one that we had here at Schneider was short-lived. It was just during the exhibition, and there were a few people who wanted it to stay up, but again, that was not part of the contract. So I do get paid for temporary murals slightly differently than the ones that are permanent. Now, I know that the duration of a fresco and something like that can be very long, like a long time. They can last forever if done well. And also mosaic can last a long time, or high clay tiles that are fired at the right temperature. My murals are still up. I do work with lots of different people to make sure I'm using the right support, that they're varnished in the right way, and that the walls are prepped so that they last longer than if I was just painting directly onto a wall that was not prepared and not varnishing, because for sure those murals would not last long due to the weather. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's time for one more question, and there we go.
Hi, Maria. I have a question that's sort of related to David's question. I'm just sort of thinking about your experience as an artist working in these two very different realms, like the private realm of selling a painting that is an object that might go to a private collection versus the experience of making something for a community or like a specific place. And I'm just wondering, like, how is the experience for you working for the public, like with all of these rules? And because I think it's pretty remarkable that your work on, I don't know if it's on board or on canvas or fabric, but that it's like translating to these larger public places. Like it still has the feeling of your work, which is really awesome, because I think that that's hard to do, to like make your work translate onto this bigger scale in this totally different context with all of these rules. And so I guess I'm just wondering if you might want to talk about those two contexts and the difference for you as an artist, and like, do you have a preference, or like, do you enjoy all the rules and like having that working in that context, or yeah?
No, that's a really great question. Thank you. I actually enjoy all aspects. I think that when you do work in public art, there's a collaboration with the architects, with everybody involved, and they teach you things. Like when I did the University of Oregon mural, in Eugene, I didn't realize what the building looked like. I didn't realize that there were all these accents and colors and materials that when my mural was placed into them, it would work perfectly. You know, because I had 4 designs and I was reading equally for all 4. And then when I saw what they were doing when the building was up, I realized, oh, this is why this piece works perfectly in this space. And so I like the surprises. I like to do that. One thing that I've learned is that I like to work directly with the institution that is commissioning. So if it's a school or a private business or a town, I want to work directly with the committee. I don't think I work as well when there's somebody in between, like an art consultant, because they're mediating the dialogue. And there are some people who are really great at that job, but I could also see some stuff lost in translation. And so my most successful projects have been making sure that I'm in the room with the people and we're all doing this together, and I get to bring like my taste and like what I want to do, and they tend to be very accepting and allow me to do often what I want. The only spaces where that gets a little bit more restrictive is probably if it's like a federal building or a hospital. But I do like both. I like the gallery shows, I like the museum shows, developing relationships with my collectors. I find that very important, so that's also why I am an independent artist. And I do not have a gallery who gets to meet my collectors. I like to meet them directly.
I know I said last question, but I'm going to ask one more question just to close it out. Maria, you are a young emerging artist. You just finished your education not too long ago. The room is full of SOU students. Can you share just a few words of confidence for the students to close out this talk?
Oh, that's tough. No, okay. Thank you, Scott. Scott has seen me since I was just a fresh undergrad trying to locate an art studio on campus, and has been a friend through my career so far. And I think if you want to have a career in the arts, you should go for it. You should also learn how to market your stuff. You should learn how to manage your money, because there are moments when there's a lot of money coming in, and I mean, it's okay to go shopping, but make sure that you're saving for later. I think that's probably one of the most important things I could say. And then also, don't listen to people who like don't support you that much. It's good to hear them and see what they have to say, and if you like what they're saying, or there's always something to learn. Whether somebody says something that you don't like, maybe there's some truth in that, so you listen to it, but at the end of the day, I think there was a Pratt motto, stay true to your work and your work will stay true to you. Like, if you're into your work and you develop it and you give it the care, it will shine and it will be there for you, and it will be good representation of what you want to be making. So it does take hours. You have to be in the studio, you have to make work. You can't really be a great artist without investing yourself in that way, in researching and drawing over and over again, or painting. It could be collaborative, but it does take quite a bit of time to grow your skills. Some people are saying they were learning to code. It takes time, but you can, after many hours, you'll be quite good at it. So that's probably what I can encourage you to do the most. And also talk to other people, not just your teachers. Some students say, well, I'm here to learn from the teachers, but you're here to learn from each other in your community as well.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everybody. Maria's talk is our contribution to the Oregon Fringe Festival, which is going on now through the weekend. If you do not follow the Schneider Museum of Art, please sign up for our e-news blast as well as our social media. We have a talk coming up and many, many other events. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.